Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bree Robinson, and I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Leadership and Diversity at Miami University. And I'm joined today by Coach Jack Owens and Coach DeUnna Hendrix. They are our men's and women's basketball coaches here at Miami. On behalf of Miami Athletics, we'd like to give a special thanks to Kroger for their longstanding partnership with the athletic department. Kroger, fresh for everyone. So before we get started, coaches, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you give us an update on your programs, what's been going on? I'm sure the people in the audience today would love to know.
Okay. Yeah, day by day has never taken new meaning. We are literally day by day right now. We're in practice. We're slated to start November 25th, our non-conference schedule. And right now we have a full schedule. So trying best we can to prepare and get in shape and be ready for November 25th and then have a full season ahead.
Yeah, and for men's basketball, very similar, going day by day. We're close to finalizing our non-conference schedule. We know with league play, we went to 20 games, and there's been a lot of changes with NCAA from how you can, schedule MTE, how you participate in it, and just the format of, getting games under the new guidelines. And that's been challenging, but we're close to getting the schedule out and just moving forward. The guys are just, grateful for this opportunity, excited for the opportunity to have a chance to compete and play, and doing so and staying healthy. I think those are the things that we talk about a lot, but the guys are excited about the opportunity to compete and play.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we know that it's been a challenging year. There have been many things that look differently. So thank you for sharing the updates on your programs. So we'll get right into it. Talking about diversity and inclusion within Miami Athletics. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about what diversity and inclusion means to you and how it's impacted the way that you recruit?
Coach.
Yeah, Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. Well, diversity, first of all, you're talking about, race, religion, different cultures and everything else in regards to your team. And with that, sports, our team, it allows us to bring everything together and be able to learn from each other, and with the diversity, different backgrounds and cultures, that's great because guys tend to, when that wall comes down, we tend to listen, and that's when authentic relationships are built and go from there. But from a recruiting standpoint, we want to identify the best player, person, student athlete that we can. And we're not going into it in a way of just looking, this is what we need from that standpoint. We just want to get the best person we can and who fits our team and our need and go from there. So in recruiting, that's how we go about it. And then once we get the guys here, we try to wrap our arms around each other and love on each other and learn from each other and go from there.
Yeah, and for women's basketball, actually one of our goals is to be the most diverse team in the country. And when we talk about diversity, we talk about religious affiliation, we talk about sexual orientation. We talk about family background, but furthermore, as a player, we are huge on not bringing in two players of the same skill set, same mindset. We're huge on even passing on kids if we already have somebody similar. We want a room that's super diverse. I think that's the biggest opportunity for growth is to open each other's lens to new things. And so, yes, we talk about basketball, but we talk about what are they coming from? Who are they coming from? What's their complete makeup? And so we're a staff that actually will take longer to throw out offers just to get a better understanding of a person in totality.
And I think that's really important to acknowledge right now, because when people think about diversity, I think naturally they think about the things that they see, right, that are really obvious to our eyes. And I think that what we've learned over the course of the last several months, especially in engaging in conversations with our student athletes, coaches, and staff, is that people come from all different types of places and have lived experiences that are very unique and really is shaping and changing the way that we view diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as how we think about justice. So thank you for sharing that bit of information. Both of you have sat in on a new series that we're doing called RedHawk Real Talk, where we're elevating the voices of our student athletes. We're bringing coaches in to the conversation, trying to create a safe space. Can you share more about your experience and what you've done to elevate the voices of the student athletes and bring your staff into the fold in all of that?
Yeah, I got to sit in on a voting session just to be on the screen, I guess, with players from other teams. You almost eliminate the power dynamic of player coach. And at this point, we're all people, just sharing our lived experiences. So really, really cool opportunity, an hour of just genuine dialogue. So where at that point, I didn't have to be a coach. I could just be DeUnna Hendrix and they were who they were. And I just think that's been sort of the theme across the board the last couple months of let these student athletes speak. Give them a space to talk and share their stories and their lived experiences. And sometimes it's listening, sometimes it's going back and forth. But as long as we're allowing that space, it's always going to be a good thing.
Yeah, and for me, I was able to sit in on diversity, and we got into everything. It was amazing because I believe it was the first one, right, Bree, in regards to the RedHawk Real Talk, and just to hear our student athletes speak, it was amazing, and also learn from them, and also hear what's on their heart, and it gave me hope, excitement for the future. But with your help, Bree, and our administration has done a great job to give them a platform to be able to speak freely. Because think about it, when we came through, we did not have that platform, and there were certain things that you didn't want to address or bring up. Now our student athletes, our students here at Miami, have a platform to where they can speak freely and say and be real. And I think when students and like Coach mentioned, I was just able to be Jack Owens and listen and hear them speak and what's on their heart. And it's not just my team, because we have those conversations, but when you hear other student athletes speak and they're going through similar things, and also hear someone who probably hasn't experienced some of the things that some individuals have, to hear them have the compassion or the empathy and understanding to show love, and that's what I talk a lot about. It says, when you don't understand and you haven't been through it, the one thing is you can learn from it, you can hear someone, and you can love. And that doesn't, you don't have to agree with what everyone's saying, but you can show love and understand that this could bother an individual and hear them out, and that can go a long way. But the platform of RedHawk Real Talk has been great. I think it's an awesome deal. Hopefully it's a series that we can continue to have, even when we get through this. And I think the student athletes will appreciate it. And I think, Bree, you've done a great job of getting us to this point.
Well, thank you. I know I've talked to both of you individually, but for me personally, I know that there is no DEI without our entire staff. I think that our entire staff, our student athletes, have really bought in. They've embraced the challenge because that's exactly what it's been, right? It hasn't come without a lot of work, without a lot of hard conversations. I know I joined both of you on team calls to talk through different topics, to also go through different activities and exercises surrounding bias, and trying to take on the perspectives of others. And I think in Miami Athletics, we're at this point where we're really trying to make sure that we practice empathy. That is a really, really big thing. And for those joining us today, we've been intentional about delineating between what it means to have sympathy or feel sorry for someone, and then have empathy, which means taking on the perspectives of others. So what has that been like for you and your teams? What have you learned from your student athletes and their level of readiness or their ability to be able to take on the perspectives of others?
I'll take that, Coach. Well, for me, and with guys, it's different, I think, than women. I'm at home with women all the time, and I feel they're able to share and speak what's on their mind more frequently than guys. And I could be totally wrong, but based on my team, it's hard. But when this came about, the George Floyd, Breanna Taylor, and those things, those incidents that happened, 4 or 5 months ago, some walls came down. To hear not only African American guys speak, but you have people of different walks just say, hey man, I haven't been through that, but at the same time, I understand and I'm here for you. You're my brother. If you need me, I'm there for you. To hear guys speak and our coaching staff, they haven't, everybody hasn't had the same walk of life, and to hear coaches speak and our team speak and everyone just have real conversations has been great. I truly believe it allows us to get closer, have authentic relationships to where we can truly look through someone else's lens and show that we can care about each other, and even if we haven't gone through those same walk of life.
Yeah, I think for us, thankfully, some bias awareness was already embedded in our culture. The things that we stood for in trust, respect, and unity. We have true sessions, what we call true sessions, which we were already doing some of the work. And so when the big issues came to the forefront, I think it allowed it to a little bit more ease to sort of speak through and talk through knowing the background work we've already done. But it is tough. It's not easy. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. I think it was even harder for our kids in the majority to join those conversations. And really, I think the hardest part of it all was creating and cultivating an environment to where they had a voice as well, And so I'm thankful that we already had that embedded in our culture to where those sessions didn't seem as heavy, although they were. We were just able to share, knowing that the trust and the care was already there.
I know the vulnerability over the last several months has been very real. I mean, I'll be honest, like I shed some tears on some calls with some student athletes, and as distant as we feel because of the virtual setting, it's been very empowering. And I don't think I've ever felt the love more than now from student athletes, from coaches, that we're in the right place and we're doing the right things. Both of you mentioned with RedHawk Real Talk that we've had the opportunity to submerge student athletes from different teams, coaches from different teams, in spaces and settings that they may not ordinarily be interacting in. And so we recently did our Step Into the Arena 3 program, where we focused on moving from this place of being an ally to actually being an accomplice to change. And with that program, we really wanted our student athletes to understand that regardless of whether you're talking about race, you're talking about religion, you're talking about sexual orientation, ability, that inclusion is all the same when you talk about being able to identify and having a level of readiness to be able to submerge yourself to do the work. And so what were your thoughts about that program? I know, all of our teams were a part of it, but there were different levels of participation. I know Coach Hendrix, you and your staff were facilitators. So talk a little bit about that program, what you feel like the student athletes got out of it.
Number one, I loved it. So thank you for putting that on. Our staff we were all co-facilitators, and actually one of our student athletes, Peyton Scott, was also a co-facilitator. So just the educating ourselves leading up to the event was really beneficial for all of us. And we had conversations around that just leading up to the event. I think the format of the actual event, Step Into the Arena, from sending out a worksheet prior to the breakout groups, everything's mindfulness and awareness, right? So just allowing student athletes the ability to think through some of their processes and some of their experiences to then sit in a breakout room with peers was pretty fascinating. And a lot of times, again, it's just opening up that space for them to have the ability to talk. But I know the group that I was in, and from the feedback I've got from my assistants, it was wide open, and there was that vulnerability piece. And I think it felt safe. And I think there's still conversation happening around that now. It's a pretty cool experience.
Bro, I just think it's another great thing you're doing. Obviously, it's another platform for student athletes to speak and get to know each other on a different level. I think it's an amazing deal in regards to stepping into the arena. I know my student athletes are, they're embracing it. They feel they can, speak openly and understand that, there's other student athletes who are going through or having similar experience that they have or whatnot. But this is just another great platform for us to have here at Miami. And can't say it enough, Bree. I just think you're doing a great job in our administration, giving the student athletes these platforms to be real.
Thank you. I know for me, as I'm thinking through the next steps or the next level that we're going to take it to, I think back to my experience as a student athlete. And Coach O, you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, that there were things that we didn't necessarily have access to. And maybe they weren't things that we were told not to do, but we certainly did not have the environment and the space to be able to do them. And so as I think through what we're doing within Miami athletics, I think there's a certain level of intentionality and purpose that really guides everything that we're doing. And I'm very appreciative of our student athletes. I mean, when you talk about having courage and you talk about being bold, they're really managing up as far as I'm concerned, right? They are stepping outside of their comfort zones and pushing us outside of ours as administrators and coaches to be able to take this to the next level. So I do want to make note of that our student athletes have really taken the initiative to be able to be involved and move it forward. One of those areas being our Intercollegiate Athletics Diversity and Inclusion Council. And so we've assembled that group to be able to have conversations and figure out really across our different leadership groups, opportunities to collaborate. So using our Student Athlete Advisory Council to be able to initiate some actionable change within the athletic department, as well as our Champions for Life Leadership Academy. And so I thank you both for your involvement, but also for your encouraging your student athletes to be involved and make sure that they are present, that they are taking the lead, encouraging, allowing them the opportunity to do so, because we know that that's a huge part of their development while they're here. So, all right, so I'm going to direct this a little bit more towards you all personally. But you're both racial minorities, working in college athletics and coaching basketball specifically. What has your experience been managing your role just as a head coach who's a minority, and then also supporting student athletes who identify as diverse groups of people?
I'll go ahead and take it. I think sometimes walking your walk authentically invites people to walk theirs, and I think as a Black gay female, the student athletes that I coach, I almost in some way reaffirm or affirm their ability to be themselves, just by me being authentic in who I am and taking ownership in that and being confident in that. And I think the biggest pressure that I'm feeling right now as a minority is because we do have such a diverse group, is again, creating a space to where when we talk about diversity, I don't know if we always talk about inclusion in the right ways, because we miss the majority group, and so those kids that are coming from privilege or come from the good situation, how do I create and cultivate an environment where they also feel included? We're big on that. We talk about that as a staff all the time. I think as a minority, there's just when you talk about likeness, people that have similar identities, that conversation naturally, organically takes care of itself. And then you have to be more cognizant of when you don't have that, and how do you create a safe spot? Because I think about psychological safety all the time. In order for you to be able to perform, there has to be a psychological safety in that environment. And as a leader and as a staff, we have to do our part to cultivate that environment. And we're huge on that and very cognizant of that most times. So yes, it's hard to be a minority right now, but it's hard to be anybody right now. It doesn't, we can talk about who has it better or worse all day, every day. But just, I don't know, it's been really cool to see sort of how everybody's come to the forefront, and it doesn't matter what they look like or what they come from, and do something as a collective to ultimately get to oneness.
Yeah, and with me, it's just, you know, I think, Bree, we talked about it before. You know, when I show up to work, it's like what Coach D just said. You know, you want to walk the walk. You know, you want to set an example. But I feel like I'm on. You know, when I step foot out my car, just to be real, I'm on. And that's a deal where I'm not saying I have to be perfect, but you do feel a responsibility to set an example for everyone who looks like me. It doesn't matter, you know, who they are. You want to set an example to where you know it's a good role model in that regards, to where you know you want them to understand this is what you know, for me, a real man looks like. This is how he conducts his business. This is how he operates professionally. This is how, you know, you handle certain situations. You know, when you make a mistake, you apologize, you own up to it. You know, when you do something that hurts someone else, that's just how you handle it. And I want my guys to understand, talking about my team now, in regards to there's a way you go about everything. You know, there's a right and a wrong way, and how we address it, and how you treat people, and how you communicate. All those things go hand in hand. So I feel a responsibility, not only for my team, but for everyone where I come from. You know, I think I'm truly blessed to have this opportunity to be a head coach here. But no matter where I was at, I think I will have this responsibility to conduct myself in a certain manner and treat people the right way. But I do feel like I'm on. You know, you step foot out the car, you're on. You know, and it's, you know, you can't let down. And I don't want to let my players down, my staff down, because I feel like we have a great staff. You know, you're talking about my team can go to guys on the staff who can relate to them, you know, and understand they've been there, done that, but also someone who looks like them. If not, you know, they can still relate and help them. So in that regards, you know, you just try to do the best you can on a daily basis to set an example that they can follow.
Yeah, that resonates with me, with feeling like you have to be on. But I also think that as much as student athletes see me and may identify with me because they see me, I think it's so important. And what I've tried to do is position myself where, even though we may not look alike, they feel like they can still trust me to be able to have that conversation with me. And I think that that's been very, very big. And back to what Coach Hendrix was saying about, you create a safe space. You realize that you have a responsibility to the student athletes, regardless of what their beliefs are, to open yourself up, to be approachable. And I think that's been beautiful, because it's shown me that our student athletes really trust us to be able to support them. And I think when we talk about creating that safe space and creating a brave space, we're managing to do that by keeping an open mind and welcoming them. So I'm looking in the chat. There's a question from someone in the audience here that they have for both of you. And the question is, how can we as individuals on a daily basis aid in keeping diversity in our words and actions throughout our department and the Oxford community, especially since we don't interact with coaches and players every day?
Yeah, I mean, I would say let it be a part of who you are. You know, it's what you allow you to tolerate, you know, and so if you see something that's wrong, say something. You know, I think we say it all the time in our offices. It's everybody wants to be seen and heard. Ultimately, that's the thing. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. And if there's a mutual respect, and it sounds so cliche and corny, but treat each other with kindness, well, that's a start. You know, and you just hope that you affect somebody that's going to affect somebody, and down the line, and ultimately it will sort of streamline its way through our community. But I don't know if you have to have a coach over you all the time. I don't know if everybody talks about mentoring. I don't know if that's part of it, but being, again, authentic and genuine, and just bringing some sort of warmth to the overall community. And if you don't like it, or if it goes against what you believe in, have the courage to say something, you know, is a start. But this is, everybody wants it to be a sprint, and for it to change overnight. That's not a thing. it's definitely a process.
Yeah, I agree. Just to piggyback, just to continue to show love, and when something isn't right, just speak up. And I think that's what our student athletes and as a community, no matter what, you can show love. You don't have to agree with what everybody's doing, everyone's doing, but at the same time, you can show love and can be compassionate of everyone, situation, and treat people how you want to be treated. Let's just do that. If we can do that, first rule of thumb there, I think we can continue to move our community forward, our society forward, and go from there. But at the end of the day, I think it starts with just showing love and having that understanding right there, how we can help each other and go from there.
Bree, I think the other thing I would say as I'm thinking is sort of reframe what diversity is, because I think when some people hear it, it's now been a hot button word. You immediately go to your image of it. Well, if we can start associating diversity with just difference, just let's start there. Like any sort of difference, whether we look alike, don't look alike, let's celebrate that, and let's widen that view of what diversity looks like to where it does maybe open up a different space for someone that wasn't going to be, open to it before. So maybe just reframing what diversity is.
Yeah, and with that, I have that actually here, the definition of diversity, the condition of having or being composed of different elements. If we think about that, how can we align that together and continue to treat each other accordingly? So you're bringing everyone's differences together, all right? And we show respect and we show love and we treat people the right way. Man, I think that's powerful in itself, just from the definition of diversity. I think if we can do that as a community, society, and treat each other that way, I think that could be pretty powerful.
And I think some of that comes by being able to have the courage to ask questions. I tell people all the time, I am not a self-proclaimed expert on diversity, equity, inclusion. I know what my lived experiences are, and I try to be critical of myself in acknowledging that I don't have all the answers. I don't always know, but I am always learning. And I think that that's really important, that right now we ask ourselves, what is it that we know? And what is it that we don't know? What is it that we think we know? And how can we change our perspective or reframe it? What things are within our lived experiences? What things are outside of them? I think to myself, I recently attended a presentation by Dan Darko, one of our partners within Miami Athletics, but he works in the Miller Center for Student Disability Services across campus. And the education that he provided regarding people with disabilities was incredible. And for me as an able-bodied individual, that's a blind spot of mine. But I had to think to myself, like, what is it that I know or what I think I know, and what is it that I don't know and have no clue about? And I think that that's really important, that we constantly evaluate that. I personally have also been looking at what is the language that I'm using when I'm having a conversation with someone. So I acknowledge that while my gender pronouns might be she, hers, that may not be the case for everyone. And so when we even think about like the language that we have, whether it is we're publishing a document or we're writing articles or sharing information, being able to create a space where people can ask questions, but people can also share that information. If I don't identify as a part of said group, is it open for me to say that I don't identify as that in a safe way? And I think, again, question asking has been a really big part of that. Another question that I want to pose, I know we've had conversations about messaging and what's going to be on uniforms or what we're going to acknowledge during games. I know that the football team the other night had patches on their uniforms that said "matter is the minimum." And I commend them for the work that they've done to be able to get to this point, and the unity and just love that they have for one another on their team to get to this point. But we also acknowledge that there are many different issues that people are passionate about. For you all, have you had any discussions about if there's any messaging that you are going to wear on your uniforms, or any sort of acknowledgments that you would like to do throughout the season. Can you share that with our audience?
Jack, go ahead.
Well, for us, we're going to do something in regards to our jersey, or if it's a patch, whatever it is. I want it to be something that they want to do together, and it means something where, whatever it may be. I know we're in the process of finalizing that with our team and with you, Bree, in regards to what that's going to look like. I think that's it's going to be pretty cool, but it's going to be something that's driven by our players and not me. And I just want to be a part of it, and I think that's pretty cool when you have a group of guys that want to be about true change is what we talk about, and how can we, I guess, get our voice out there or whatnot. But I do want it to be a situation where it's a team. And we go on from there in regards to our message. If it's a patch, if it's something on the floor, whatever it may be, we want it to be unified in one unit as we move forward.
Yeah, same. I haven't talked to our team much about it. We will. I think having a diverse team, you've got to be careful, because again, you can cause division within your team without even knowing it. And so I think that's something we'll have to talk further through. But again, if we're walking it, I feel good. I don't want it to be something that's performative for us. So I want to make sure that we know our intention and we know how we want to present that if we do present that. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
Have you all thought at all in what ways your former alumni and former student athletes who are a part of your programs could help move initiatives or causes forward? Because I think that's a big part. One of the things that we did, even with Step Into the Arena, is we did bring alumni into the fold. And I think that made it very unique because our alumni were then able to share some of their identities and talk through their lived experiences as a student athlete, but also as working professionals. So do you have any plans to include your alumni in the process of moving DEI initiatives forward?
Well, for us, Damon's on our staff, who obviously is a former player, so it allow us to have Zoom calls with some former players as well. But I'm open to any suggestions or anything that can help in this regards, and help our team. I think this is great. If we have alums who want to come back or speak to the team, I would be open to anything, because I know everyone that I've reached out to, they have accepted with open arms and have spoke to our team. So this is great. If there's someone out there who wants to speak to men's basketball or whenever we open things up, they want to come to campus and we could have a sit down or whatnot, I'm definitely open to any of those ideas.
Yeah, same. We host a alumni call once a month. Right now it's been 5 or 6 alum at a time, but we're pretty open to speaking your experiences, speak to our team. We are also fortunate enough to start the DEI fund in athletics. And I know that our alum have already been super instrumental in contributing to that fund, just so we can, overall warm the climate of the campus. And we spoke pretty frequently to our alumni base prior to, and I'm sure those conversations will continue to be had. But any alum, yes, you are welcome. Please reach out. I think more than anything, we can say our student athletes benefit. I think we all benefit, because at that point, again, the power dynamic sort of is eliminated and we're just sharing experiences.
Coach Hendrix, I'm going to come back to you a little bit because you made mention of the DEI fund. Can you talk a little bit about where that idea came from, how you drove it forward, what the purpose of it? I mean, DEI, we obviously know, but
Bree, we got all day.
We don't have that much time, but give us the Cliff Notes version.
Oh man, I'll try my best. Yeah, there's been a lot of thought going into it. Obviously, you and I did a lot of work going into it. just thinking through the process, where it originally stemmed from is we talk about being active participants, be engaged. And obviously social media is one sort of platform, but what else can we actually do? You know, when you start talking about being an active participant and being engaged, you have to have some stake in the game. You know, that comes with some risk, that comes with some sacrifice. And so the conversation to our players was, what are we willing to risk? You know, at a time, especially a time where everybody needs funds, everybody needs money. We're going into a season where we're trying to elevate our program. We always are every year. But if this is what we want to stand for, what do we have to do right now to make a stance? And so I think it was just an opportunity to mentor and get our kids to understand what that really means. And all of them contributed to the fund, which I'm very, very proud of. Their families contributed to the fund. But then furthermore, okay, athletics has this organic way of bringing people from different walks together. It happens organically. Well, what happens once we leave these facilities? What happens once we're out of competition mode? On campus, is it still safe? You know, is there still a psychological safety for everybody? In the community, is there still that psychological safety? Well, when you're able to bring something to the table, you know, and when we're talking about money, it's, can we be a part of the conversation? And this is how we can help. Now you have some stake in the game. Now it sort of acts as a bridge of what is every other organization on campus doing? Now you're at the table. Now we can have some conversations and saying, why are we still working in silos? Let's work on this together. And ultimately, let's warm the whole campus together. Let's warm the whole community together. And let's just get a better understanding. You know, so like I said, I could talk all day about sort of the thought behind it, but there was definitely an internal piece of let's educate within our department. Let's make sure home is taken care of. But let's also make sure that the neighborhood is safe after dark. You know what I'm saying? Like in a metaphoric way. But very, very proud of the effort. And one day we had a great turnout in one day. And we're just hoping that people jump on, which I think they will.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I know we've had lots and lots of conversations about athletics being the leaders and trying to continue the movement, right? Because I think a lot of our student athletes and a lot of what we heard was that this has been one of those things where we've seen it happen before when there's been an event in society, and not necessarily just related to race, but there have been events in society that have really thrust social justice or brought to light social injustices. And now suddenly it's an emergency situation. And what we in athletics have talked about is we don't want this to just be a one-time thing. We don't want it to just be a moment for a year, but we want this to be who we are as we move forward. And I think that, you know, what we've seen as we've continued to move along is that there's great opportunity. I know Coach Hendrix, we talked about like high risk equals high reward in this case. Miami, there are a lot of things that Miami has never done before, and there are a lot of things that Miami athletics has never done before. And we have to be willing to take that risk in order for us to be better than who we've been to our students and our alumni as well. So how are you encouraging your student athletes to build that bridge across campus, to use their voices, and not just in athletics, but also just within their communities?
I'm just with my guys. I just talk a lot about, hey guys, don't be scared to share and be a leader in this regards. And we have some guys on our team, from Isaiah Coleman Lance to Majay White. I can talk about a few other guys who are passionate about, you know, improving our situation here at Miami, but also in our society. You know, I think Isaiah Coleman Lance is a guy that can run for governor and want to make real change. I think he's got that in him and that passion to do so, you know, and those are the things I talk to the guys about. You know, we talk about, no question, we want to win every game that we play and go to the NCAA tournament, but I also talk to the guys about their passion and what's on their heart and making real change. And then we have some guys on our team that want to do so. And that's how we talk about improving Miami, but also just taking one step at a time, and then big picture, how can we move society forward, and those kind of things. And those are the guys that I have, and it's been great dialogue. But those, our team wants to be a part of change. I know before RedHawk Real Talk, our team was in the process of doing something very similar, and the guys wanted to be a part of it. It was a deal where they wanted to have true change here on campus, and they're still searching ways to do so. And I think that's great when you have student athletes who want to be a part of real change.
Yeah, I think for us, half of our team have taken leadership positions on different councils on campus. But beyond that, even our newcomers coming in from start said, this is why I'm coming to Miami. This is where I can have an impact. And on a smaller scale, if you want to call it such, I have my freshmen going to these dorms and introducing themselves to these students. And all of a sudden they have friends that were like, how'd you get friends already? What's going on? And it's just been fascinating to see sort of how they've done it their own way. As much as we've done what we've done collectively, we have Abby sitting on a council with you and other administrators. We have Vanessa, who's running with RedHawk Council and making sure that those messages are getting back to us, and Ty Fulton is doing her thing. And I mean, on the leadership level, but even more so throughout our team, just being authentically who they are to others on campus and inviting them into our space has been pretty cool.
And they have, let me tell you, just jumped right in. All of our student athletes have jumped right in at the opportunity. And again, I think that's what's been inspiring for me. We talk about the mission of graduating champions. And I know early on, it was like in May, when some of the events that Coach mentioned earlier with George Floyd and Breanna Taylor Ahmaud Arbery occurred. I talked to David Saylor about like what it meant to graduate champions, and realizing that we needed to push our student athletes out there and encourage them. We always talk to our student athletes also about being comfortable being uncomfortable, and that we needed to be comfortable being uncomfortable as administrators and as coaches as well, to encourage them to do the work. But also looking at the graduating champions mission, teamwork, focus, attitude, tenacity, and integrity, and how those are mainstays. Like those are a part of our fabric and who we are. And all of those things really are the guiding light for everything that we do. So we can't only value teamwork at some points. We can't only value integrity at some points, right? We have to value them equally at all times. And I think that, over the course of the last several months, we've really seen that. And I'm also grateful that in athletics, we were ahead of the game in a little bit, in a few ways, to be able to already have a position designated for diversity and inclusion. We had already had a diversity and inclusion council form, as well as some of our other leadership groups. And so again, I think that, I'm going to give kudos to David Saylor for being very forward thinking in that regard, to make sure that we were already thinking about these things. So I have a question from the audience. That asks, as coaches, do you have discussions about LGBTQ student athletes, and or do you have other professionals come in and have those conversations, and what does that look like?
Yeah, again, I could talk all day. We've got to get away from separating it. Like, it can't be, do you have conversations about race? Can you have conversations about LGBT? It's who we are. It's a part of our culture, So if you bring somebody around, I'm going to say, hey, who's this? Introduce me to, And I think it's being super intentional in your inclusive language to allow that to happen, So there is no bring your boyfriend to, no, it's bring your partner. And being very, again, intentional about what we're saying to create a safe space. How we operate is literally how we operate every day. And so we're big on bringing people in just to talk about different experiences, but to talk to our players about their personal experiences, I would hope that our staff is doing our job of creating the trust to where we can have those conversations. And again, it starts with who you bring on staff and who you bring in as a recruit. Of if you're intentional about everybody has a different walk, you've got to be able to find somebody in a room that you can relate to and feel comfortable enough to talk to about your situation. So that can be LGBT, that can be race. I mean, we have a little bit of everything. So we're not big on bringing in people to talk about those things. We want to truly be a family.
Yes, as our team, we will talk about it, and we talk about everything, like Coach said, in those regards, and I'm big on also, hey, this is what, you do as a man when you're married and you have kids, this is how you conduct yourself. And it's all, no matter who people are and how their walk of life, you got to show respect and love. Like I said, you can agree or disagree with whatever or have an opinion, but if you don't truly know someone, you're missing the boat. So no matter what, you have to be able to show love, and I'm a Christian Black man who has a strong faith, and is about, hey, this is how I operate. But I'm going to show love to everyone, and I think that's what it's about. It doesn't, like I said, you don't have to agree or disagree or have an opinion. You just got to show respect and love and understanding, of other people.
Yeah, Coach O, I know you and I talked about that. Just the ability to, you build empathy by allowing space for other people to talk, and that question asking, when you're asking people to share who they are, like Coach Hendrix just shared, you're creating that space and that opportunity for the guard to be let down. And I think that's incredibly important for us. We've seen in many athletic departments across the nation where it hasn't necessarily gone as well, because there's been this thought process that we all need to think the same thing. We all need to believe the same thing. And I'm not of that mindset that we all need to believe the same thing in terms of our fundamental philosophies or beliefs, other than respect, love, and care for one another. And I think that we're at a good point. And I think that Step Into the Arena was a great example of that. I know Coach Hendrix, you touched on it a little bit before, but what an incredible thing to see for student athletes from different countries, from different places in the United States, different religious beliefs, different sexualities, socioeconomic status, backgrounds. Like, it was pretty powerful for our student athletes to engage in that space, and not just engage in that space and trust one another to have those conversations, but also then write down action steps of how they could be better, who was going to hold them accountable, and what their plan was to be more inclusive to others, and thinking broadly about the word diversity and broadly about equity and inclusion. And so again, I'm really proud of what we've been able to do in Miami athletics, and hopeful that we can continue to move that along. I know, Coach Hendrix, you do some pretty different things with your team. You've admitted that on the front end with me on many occasions, but you do something called RedHawk Ready. Can you share with the audience what that is, why you do it, and what its purpose is?
Yeah, I think as coaches, right, we're like, do everything you can to perform, and that's usually on a physical level. So you're talking about nutrition most times, talking about rest. But I think we miss mental health, we miss emotional health. And so as much as there's always community around a meal, so we get 2 meals a week. We do Thursdays, Sundays, or Thursday, Saturdays. We provide a meal, and we sit around and we have community. But after, we're talking about, okay, what does mindfulness look like? What does meditation look like? What are some coping mechanisms that you can utilize? Because it doesn't matter if you rest and you take care of your body, if mentally you're not there, if emotionally you can't handle, and who could handle the last 8 months hell, right? Like, it's been wild. Now what we've done is dedicated time to, let's get this right too. And you can take it or leave it, but we're going to throw some different things out. So it's been really cool. Sometimes we'll bring in professionals to talk about things that we're definitely not experienced enough to talk about. But other times it's just, I think everybody on our staff meditates. So sometimes it's just introducing different breathing techniques, different types of meditations, talk about some yoga sessions, just anything extra to get them centered, because again, I think we ride the wave so much, so often. Well, what are you doing to reset, recenter, refocus? So yeah, we'll do that twice a week. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. Sometimes it's 25 minutes. So it's not this super formal, invasive thing. It's just, let's throw some different things out.
And Coach Owens, I know you've done things with your team as well to kind of get them, push them outside of the box a little bit and get them thinking in different ways. But how have you supported your student athletes? Because we know that they have diverse backgrounds. We hit on it a little bit earlier, but what are some of the things that you've done to support your student athletes and get them outside of this, one-dimensional, one way of thinking, to think about whether it's diversity and inclusion or centering themselves and doing things that they may not have done before?
Yeah, we just want our guys each individually to have a voice, and we address those things. And it could be anything. I mean, I'm talking anything, but I want them to have feel they have a platform where we can speak. So when we're away from each other, there's a lot of different things we were doing. You're trying to stay in contact with your guys, but at the same time, you really want to get to know each other. And I had a freshman come on campus, and his mom drew out the last, you talk about the 12 to 16 months of what they had to deal with. So, think about this. We had a freshman his senior year season get cut short. Then go, fast forward a month or two, there's no prom. And then they come this summer in regards to nothing's normal. Nothing. I mean, they can't go out and do anything like they normally will. So you're talking about student athletes who have been through the ringer here. And so we're talking about everything, and just being real. So the platform to be able to speak and just have that open dialogue is very important during these times. But it also allowed to have authentic relationships to where guys are really getting to know each other, and they're talking about real stuff. And coaches, we're talking about real stuff. And Bree, you talked about it. I know you were on one of our calls, and it's okay to say you don't know. I'm not going to be that coach to try to come up with, if I don't know, guys, I'm sorry. Ask Bree. I don't know. That's what I'll say. But those are the things we do with the team, and the surrounding area. Our staff. What we came up with as well was. I know everybody was going through something, and I'm telling you, it was a deal where, I'm actually pulling my trash can up the hill to take to my house. And I'm like, man, I know there's a lot of people out here hurting and thinking like I'm thinking. Let's just get on a Zoom and talk. So we sent a text out to coaches that we know throughout the state. And I'm telling you, in the 24 hours, we had coaches, usually I'm calling them asking about players. But this time we were just talking about what's going on in the world. And it was amazing to see coaches, high school coaches and college coaches who, speak on things that are real. And I think a lot of walls came down, and you getting to know people outside of, hey, what you think of this player that you have. And it's just great to have those kind of relationships and those conversations where people are being open and honest and just, showing their true feelings. And I think that's been great for me and my staff and my team. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I went around about a way to answer your question, but yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I think that there's power. Coach Hendrix mentioned it earlier, but I think that what you've done has shown your student athletes that it is okay to feel. It's okay to, to have emotions. But again, back to that point of vulnerability, right? Like, we're human, and outside of our roles as coaches and administrators, we are family members, we are partners, we are all of these different things. And also understanding that all of those identities that we have, they're very complex and they intersect in many different ways. And that's okay. Like, I don't have to only be this person in this moment as I don't only have to be a mother in this moment. I can be a mother, and I can be an administrator, and I can be Black, and I can be all of these other things. And I think that has been helpful for our student athletes, because from my experience, what I've heard them say is I can only be this at this given time. Whether it is a student or an athlete, they've struggled still with understanding that you can be great at both. You can do more than one thing at once. And so I think that's been helpful from what I've heard. So we have about 5 more minutes left, and I do have another question that I want to ask both of you. What can we do to make a better situation for our student athletes and staffs in order to feel more welcome and included?
I'll take it, Coach. I just think, to engage with them, student athletes, and it doesn't matter if they're on your team or not. There's nothing wrong with a smile, a head nod, or, when we can get back to giving a hug. I think when I first met Coach, I didn't know who she was. I'm like, man, I read her bio. Come give me a hug. I think, they want that interaction where it's authentic, it's warm. You really are, asking and caring how their day is going, because you never know, that could go a long way. But just engaging, it doesn't matter if it's a student athlete or a staff member, just engaging, saying hello, how are you doing? And I could probably do a better job in that, because I know when we get in our season and you just get locked in and you're in your own world. But just being engaging with each other and just just asking people how their day is going, and from time to time putting a call in and checking on each other. I think that'll go a long way in this area.
Yeah, it sounds really simple, right? I was gonna say the same thing, Jack. I mean, it goes back to my previous statement of everybody wants to be seen and heard, and there's times where even we've had our players, because Coach Swafford and I speak to everybody, our whole staff really does, and there's times where they don't speak back, and our players see that. They're like, well, why didn't they speak back? And it's a conversation every time of, what, the next time I see him, I will absolutely say hello again. Not because I have to, but because I know how it feels to not be acknowledged. I'm not going to make you feel that way, And so I think the lesson is, how do you make them feel welcome and accepted, is acknowledge them, acknowledge them and allow them a voice to be heard, and create a space in which they can do that. But even if it's people you don't know, on campus or in the community, it's being that model of, I'm still going to say hello. And although you don't want to acknowledge me today, maybe the next time you come across somebody that looks like me, you'll acknowledge them. So it's just affect somebody to affect somebody.
Yeah, I think along with that, same thing. I talk to everyone. You both know this. I'm a very loving and warm person. So I think that I've been received right that way as well, that I've acknowledged people I haven't been acknowledged back. And I think it gives off the feeling that, like, I'm not seen, valued, or heard right now. But I think it also goes to in my favor to do that, because I want to let people's guard down, whether it's a student athlete, another coach, a person across campus. Like, I see you, right? I see you and I acknowledge you and I value you, and I am not a threatening person, right? Whether it is because you believe I'm an administrator and I'm an authority figure, or whether it's someone that you're out in the community and you may not think that I'm here to help, I am. And I think that goes a long way, but also listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond. So understanding, again, that there's no one right way, that everyone's lived experience is what really makes them unique and what makes us valuable and special as a collective whole. So I know we're coming up on time. I wanted to thank the both of you, and also thank you again to Kroger for being our sponsor for today's webinar. And thank you all for joining us to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion in athletics. The Miami Alumni Association will offer additional webinars. And so if you're interested in joining those, please go to the website and register. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.